Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today where we'll discuss daily practices to align your mind with a higher vibration. With your host, Vaish, veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have close to 20 members on Zoom and 50 members on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to Spiritual Fitness.
Thank you very much, JM. I'm really happy to be back and so glad to see all of you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And the topic of the conversation is important because we filter everything through our minds, according to the Vedanta Sutra and the Yoga Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita. The mind is the medium through which we're viewing the world. So it's more the condition of our mind that determines how we're doing in life than anything else. And since there's a way to tune the mind, to bring it to a higher vibration through alignment, why not learn that practice? And that's been around for millennia, the practice of yoga and meditation. And when we adopt a few of these practices, we find changes in the mind. And when there are changes in the mind, our lives can be adjusted, habits upgraded, and so forth. So let's try it out. Everyone doing okay out there? Gary, good to see you. All the way from Montana. Thanks for joining us. It looks bright and peaceful out there, and you have, I see behind you, there's an Om, which is, we're gonna chant that mantra today. Sheila, so nice to see you as usual. Anna, thank you for joining us. Subhadra, Radhakripa, Nicole, thank you very much. Well, before I head into some of the practices and the philosophy behind them, and both are important, according to Vyasa, who is a great commentator, known as the great compiler of all of the wisdom literatures. He was empowered to do that. It is especially important to study the science behind the mantra. As you know, I advocate mantra meditation. It's practical, it's portable, no tax. And Vyasa says, if you study it a little bit, you study what the mechanics are behind it. It's actually not a mechanical process, but when we understand it through logic, reasoning, and even to some degree physics, then it becomes more tangible, doesn't it? And so he recommends looking at it from different angles and also practicing it for oneself, because having the experience is irreplaceable. Has anybody had any realizations over the last week since we met last that you want to share before we go into this? In your own practices, or just thoughts about the world and the way you're seeing it, and any complaints? You can register them here. Register your complaints here.
I just want to share that I feel very grateful these past weeks, and I think that I've seen enhancing my gratefulness and seeing everything from that perspective, and I think it makes me feel better. And not only that, but also finding the good things even in things that seems not that good.
That's very powerful, really, Anna. It's thank you for sharing that, because just hearing it helps us to pick up on that idea. In other words, gratitude is infectious, really. And it's a metaphysical attitude. You can't really measure it. There is no gratitude meter that you can get at an Ace Hardware or some physical instrument that you can use to measure it. Same with compassion, same with love. How are you going to measure it? It is metaphysical, it's beyond the physical. Because we are non-neural, non-temporal beings, we're beyond the physical. And what's really valuable to us ultimately are what you're mentioning, the qualities, starting gratitude, compassion, truth, equality, these types of things. So thank you for sharing that. It's actually a practice. According to the Bhagavad Gita, adjusting one's own attitude into gratitude is a way of aligning the mind to a much higher vibration, because according to the wisdom literatures, there's a way in which there is a benevolent purpose behind the world. And when I'm in gratitude, I can be patient enough to see it come around to the lesson that whatever the situation is, as you said, even in reversals or bad, so-called bad situations, where can I see the gratitude? Well, if I align myself in gratitude, then I might just wait long enough to see it come all the way back around and say, oh, that's where the lesson was. It was actually meant for my improvement. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else
Hi,
wish to share?
hi,
Yes.
Yan Yan. Hi, I wanted to share one of the things that you mentioned, so we may have patience to appreciate it. And another thing I wanted to share sometimes is we have to shift our priorities to
Mm,
appreciate and give us hope. Um, this is something that I had experienced at work. um, we don't always get the system that we wanted, and we make do with it. However, sometimes it just seems like, oh my God, there's so many things I wish it could happen and it didn't happen. And then you are so busy and you fall into despair. It's like, oh, when is it going to end? However, I I was in one of those situations, but then I aligned with other people who are very critical of the process on what is the high level. We actually, in principle, agreed. I do not have any argument with her. So what happened is there had to be a framework and a fundamental change that would allow everything to flow correctly. However, that fundamental change doesn't happen overnight. So once everything stays the same. However, in my mind, I have a clear picture of what that blue sky look like. And then everything else that I still have to do becomes a interim, a phase, and tie me up to that blue sky. So my whole mood had changed. Otherwise, I'm like, I don't see the end of this. Now that I'm like, hey, I see there is an end. As long as I put my effort to it and prioritize that end, everything else is just a phase. It will pass.
thank you very much, Anyan, for sharing that. It's this too shall pass is
Yes.
one of the main teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, is being equipoised, balanced, no matter which way the world's tipping. And in that practice of noticing that the world's changing, but I'm the observer. I'm not changing, I'm observing the world change. There's a difference between myself and my life situation, or my life and my life situation. I'm the observer of my life situation. It will change, but it's simply the movements of the external world that I'm observing. So practicing patience is actually one of the topmost yogic practices for stilling the mind. Just be patient. And this too shall pass is a powerful mantra for that.
And I
Thank you very much.
thank you. And the other thing is, don't. don't mistake patience with inactive. Patience
Right.
doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It's just you don't rush things and you do what's absolutely necessary to go for your blue sky goal and share that blue sky goal with others that may experience the same despair as you, so that you channel all the energy to that hope. That's how you have patience. You still do things. You don't just sit around and wait for that blue sky to dawn on you.
I'm taking that along with me now, the blue sky goal. And that transfers us over to Montana now for the big, isn't that the big sky state out there, Gary?
Wait, takes me a second to get my mic on. Yes, it's big sky. It's the big
Okay,
sky.
okay.
But
So
it can
since
be big cloudy sky
we
also.
saw the Om on your wall there, I thought maybe let's start with that as we have before. This is a practice of meditation given in the Yoga Sutras. It's a literature that's thousands of years old. And I'll talk a little bit more about the power of mantra and sound vibration. Om is a one-syllable mantra. And it is pronounced Om. It's 3 letters, O-U-M. And it synchronizes all of the spiritual energies in one place. The Srimad Bhagavatam describes how there's anahata sound. There are vibrations, which I'll point out in the various chakras in our body. And the vibration Om is there in the anahata chakra, right at the heart center. So as we vibrate this mantra together in just a moment, you may notice, actually, I'm going to read you a section from a scholarly presentation called Sonic Theology by a colleague of mine, Guy Beck. I haven't seen him for quite some time. But he writes in his book about the history of sound vibration and meditation. He quotes from a Western scholar who says that Om is an experience rather than an arbitrary verbal label. It is a true symbol charged with numinous power, experienceable in deep meditation. It is a sign of the omnipresence of Ishvara as manifest at the level of sound. So Ishvara is what we've talked about before. So there's an all-pervasive intelligence in the universe and a very powerful guiding force, maintenance force. We're not the maintainers, but we're the maintained. And when we tune into Om and the vibration, then we come into resonance with Ishvara. So let's try a little meditation, which is best executed if you sit up just slightly straighter than you were a second ago. It brings your mind to attention. And if you close your eyes and just try to be aware of your inner environment for a moment. We're oftentimes externally focused, but take a minute to look inwardly. And as you're sitting straighter, keep your mind alert, but relax at the same time. And breathe and be aware of your breath. And notice the exhalation and the inhalation. You might mentally say in as you inhale and out as you exhale. And just bring your mind to alertness and appreciation of your breath. And relax, even as you're alert. And breathe. So this is a good way to prepare for mantra chanting. And when you chant the mantra, as we just heard, it's experienceable. It's not an intellectual exercise, but is one in which the vibration reveals itself to you, or the information that's there inherently in the mantra will reveal itself. So I'm going to say the mantra, Om, and as I do, behind muted mics, just use your vocal cords to emulate. And the sound OM, the M, you'll notice in Om, whenever it's spelled out, has a little dot over it. That makes it a kind of a nasal sound, like bonjour, bon, Om. And so when you say the mantra, you start with open lips, and then you close your lips and let the resonance vibrate on the sound, and just feel that resonance from your vocal cords all the way down to your heart chakra. And now as I say the mantra, I'm going to slide down the scale to go to a lower note. So just try to follow me down. I'm going to go from a C sharp to a G sharp. And take a minute to breathe and just feel any of the effects of the vibration in your solar plexus or the area around your jaws and your temples. You rub your hands together, bring some external sensation, and open your eyes and come back into the room. So this is a mantra that is prevalent in the wisdom literatures written in Sanskrit, and it is known as a gateway mantra. It opens the heart, synchronizes spiritual energies, and brings us into resonance with our higher nature. We have a physical body, actually two physical bodies. One is material, gross, and the other one is very subtle, like software that runs it. But we're a different category of energy. So all of those various aspects of our existence can be harmonized on a higher level. One of the ways to start is through mantra. And you'll find if you start the day with some affirmation and mantra, speech is very powerful. We create with our words, and I'm going to talk about that today too. But before I do, let's just see if you had anything that you want to, anybody who hasn't said anything yet, and you feel like it, you can mention any of the effects of chanting Om. How did you feel? Yes, please, Sheila.
Hi. Right before you went into the meditation, I had a question. And it's funny because when we were doing the meditation, the answer came to me. As far as Anna was talking about gratitude, and I've been feeling like very grateful for all the things that I have in my life and how it's going. And I have a 27-year-old son that had been staying with me for the last almost 2 years, and he's moving out, and he's 27. He should be on his own, but I have this extreme amount of fear that keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It just keeps coming. And I'm like, how do I get rid of this fear? I know why I'm having the fear. It's because I'm thinking something bad's going to happen because it's going so well and something bad's coming. And that keeps coming to me. And I'm like, where is that coming from? And I realize that I have to live in this moment, in this day, and stop being way out there in the future and projecting things that haven't even happened. And so it's like, how do I get rid of this fear? Well, I have to meditate. I have to do what you just did and really tune into that peace that I so want in my life. But I'm not to the point of being disciplined to do that in the morning. So just doing what you did helped me tremendously. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for sharing, and you gave us so much to work with, and you answered your own question so beautifully. Thank you very much for sharing that. And yeah, the world is a fearful place, and there's a way in which we do stew over the changes that might take place and what's going to happen next. Had a realization of this earlier in the year. I noticed when the pandemic first started, and I was checking in from time to time on the status of the world. Is it going to hold together and so forth? And I realized that my mind was trying to predict the future so that I would feel safe. And when I realized there is no time I'm going to predict the future, because there is no future. I'm always in the same place. I'm in the present right now. I'm not advocating that just shut out the world completely, but I am advocating that what you're saying, and that is do the inner work first, and then have a more enlightened engagement with the world. And it's not that fear of change and other kinds of emotions won't come up. They will, but we all know how to process them. And not only that, as I may have mentioned in one of the previous classes, through practice of mantra meditation, we get what's called nam bala. In Sanskrit, bala means strength, and nam means from the name in the mantra. It has a kind of direct inherent power. So it helps us overcome this kind of weakness of heart that in which we give in to just wanton worry. I just constantly worry. It's like a ceiling fan, just going around and around and around. There is a center I can go to, and I can feel strength from the practice. So your instinct, or wisdom rather, to take up spiritual practice on a more regular basis. And it doesn't mean if you can't do it in the morning right now, you can do it anytime. It doesn't matter. Every little bit helps. Thank you for sharing that, Sheila. It was very helpful.
Can I add something to Sheila's talk?
Miriam, yes, go ahead.
Sheila, I felt like what you were saying, and I felt like a lot of times, maybe more than missing a person, we miss the connection that we have with them. So what I would say is the way you told us, it's just really like at least hit me. Please do tell your son about your feeling, so he feels that you are connected to him. So I think mostly you're missing the connection. And if you just tell him like how you are connected, I think he will get that, and he will always have in his mind, and he will come back to you. I mean, just the communication, the connection should be there. It doesn't matter where he is physically, but if he sees that the way that we saw, I feel like everybody feel it. Yeah, and definitely your son will do.
Thanks, Miriam. Such nice advice. Simple and direct and very useful. All right, shall we go into a few slides?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen and expound. So the premise upon which I'm presenting these is that our minds are amendable. They're also flexible. They're also improvable. And one of the ways that the wisdom literatures talks about improving the state of our mind or aligning it with higher energy is to upgrade our environment, because we're influenced by the environment that we're in. We have an internal and an external environment. The internal environment is the environment we find within our own minds. And I've spoken at length in these various sessions over the last couple of years about one of the most effective ways of amending or upgrading our internal environment in the mind is to be careful about what we allow to come in through our senses. If we're a little disciplined, for instance, one of the ways in which the mind can be engaged, apparently for hours on end, is at looking at a screen. I'm not talking about for work. I'm just talking about a state of mind in which one might scroll through useless kinds of information. A discipline that I've recommended for many years, before even screens came available, like on smartphones, which is back in the TV era. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that era, but there were televisions back in the old days. People used to watch all the time. And so, yes, one of the bits of advice I got many, many years ago, which I've passed on, is before you turn on a device that you're going to look into, be very deliberate about why you're going there. Ask yourself the question, does this align with my goal for the day? And if it does, well, what are you going to watch? What are you going to look at specifically? If you look at non-specific information, you're liable to take in all kinds of stuff that doesn't really do anything for internal environment. This takes practice, because it's simply the norm nowadays to just look at a screen all the time and be unaware of what one's looking at, or be looking at it for business, but just always doing it. That's why the various providers have now put warnings that you can put into place. Hey, are you sure you want to look at this all night long? Or they give you a little measurement of how long you were looking at a screen. So if you do it internally yourself, you'll feel really happy that I'm regulating what goes in. External environment has a lot to do with the space that we live in. We have a base from which we practice every day, and from where we live our lives. And the yoga teachings say that keep it spotlessly clean. It's worth going out of your way to make sure everything's clean, because that's it puts us, the external environment, and therefore it reflects inwardly into a modality in nature called sattva. Sattva is cleanliness, light, and just being very clean. Sometimes that one can put that off for the sake of progress or something like that. But the yogic scriptures say Yes, stay clean. Take the trouble that it takes to keep clean, because you'll be much more productive in the end, and your mind will be clearer. These are the three energetic transformations of nature called gunas. Guna means rope. We're pulled in different directions by, according to the wisdom literatures, by these modalities or energetic transformations. The highest of them, the most productive for expansion of consciousness and happiness itself. Happiness comes from situating one's mind in sattva. You can't have happiness, say the wisdom literatures, in rajas and tamas. It's not possible. It isn't available there. So to get to happiness and peace of mind, as we mention over and over again in our society, how about peace of mind? You have to be in sattva. It's a state of mind. And so what are the ways in which to cultivate sattva, and what is a sattvic mind? These are questions that can be answered and that we can adopt incrementally in our life so that we come up to a higher level. One of the recommendations is really to be regulated. I've just put a few sketchy ideas here about prioritizing activities. You find that rather than letting the mind just take over and just do whatever you want, if you prioritize, you decide, you be the adult in the room and decide, what are the most important activities for my advancement of consciousness? And you write them down. Just that one act will give you a lot of determination, because you know you decided something, you know what to come back to, and set your goals for it. For instance, as far as getting up to an affirmation rather than just rolling out of bed and doing whatever your mind says to do on that particular day. If you have a goal to start the day with an affirmation or with some meditation or some cleanliness ritual, then you'll have it in front of you. It's a guiding force. As far as regulation goes, sleep is way up there on the list. Any healthcare practitioner will tell you, even nowadays, that sleep is vital to all the proper functionings of our body, of our bodies and minds. And the best trick I've ever found, and the way to actually catapult oneself forward into sattva, is just try this practice of going to sleep earlier. You notice I'm not saying get up early, because it's practically impossible to get up early if you don't go to sleep early. So the trick is on the top side. And one of the ways that in our society we've become out of balance is by going to bed later and later and later at night. Some people have to, I understand that. There are different circumstances under which you may be obligated, but because of electric light and stimulation of the brain into the wee hours of the night, it may just become a habit. So if you practice going to bed at a certain time and incrementally make it earlier, just try it sometime, you'll find that you can get up early, and the early morning hours before the sun, if you can get a taste for those, that's the time when you can, through your reading, affirmation, and meditation, make the most progress. You get a lot of miles, even before the sun comes up. And of course, exercise daily is really important. Then do non-reward seeking work. This is called also selfless service or karma yoga. Means find some work in your life or in your day where you're working without reward. Maybe even you're doing it anonymously. And when you work in this way, you'll notice that your consciousness becomes expanded. You grow by giving. And when you do it anonymously, you'll realize that kind of giving is its own reward. So the more we can align with non-reward seeking work, according to the wisdom literatures, the more we actually become self-realized. We start to harmonize, align with our dharma, or our responsibility as living entities, as living beings, in the way we interact with the world and with others. And then adjustment of attitudes. But before I go into that, adjustment of attitudes, which is a big subject, let's just check in to see if there's anything anybody's commented on Facebook or elsewhere, or would like to make a comment now of what you've heard so far. Reflections are anything that you heard so far that stuck in your mind, where you thought, well, that sounds interesting or practical, or something I hadn't heard before that perhaps is something you can take away in your pocket. What did you hear so far? Just reflect something back.
I really like the idea of going to sleep early. I think somebody else also mentioning the same thing, because I kept on going into the cycles where, I really want to get up early, and then, I end up sleeping late, and then next day I realize, oh, okay, the problem is not getting up early, it's going to bed early. So I think that's a very, very powerful realization. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for reflecting that. It is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita as one of the yogic practices is to regulate sleep. And you'll notice a kind of strength you'll get when you even start thinking about it. I recommend that you not try to do it in quantum leaps, but just incrementally try it, because sleep is a bear, and bears sleep, of course. There's been much research about sleep, and it's not to be toyed with. It's a vital function of the mind, of the brain, of the intelligence of the body. And the more we can research it and find out in our own lives how to regulate it, the more we come to sattvic mind, and the more you'll feel that you're determining your own direction. Isn't it amazing? Just such a seemingly simple sounding type of a activity can have such an effect. At least that's what I'm saying. That's my theory that I'm presenting from ancient wisdom writings. But it's been my experience also. I'm not saying anything that I don't do myself in this presentation. I do go to bed early, and I get up early also. I couldn't imagine sleeping past the sun, because the golden hours of the morning that I actually covet are before the sun comes up. What else? Let's see if there's one or two more.
We do have few messages on chat as well as Facebook. We have Neelette, who had said that, she resonated with what Sheila had said. I read about this feeling in Brené Brown's book, Daring Greatly. She talks about foreboding joy. And Ramakrishna just posted a question: what kind of activities are non-reward seeking on a daily basis? Please explain.
Well, one way that some people lock into non-reward seeking work is, if you're working and you get an income, then pre-designate something to go to something that you believe in, so that it's not like, this is for me, this is for my future, this is for my kids, or whatever it is. Put it something that's not in your realm, where you're doing good for others. And if you lock that in, one of the practices is to lock that in, so that when you're working, you're actually aware of the fact that some of the fruit of my work is going for some service for others. And just that very experience, you'll notice, makes your work more purposeful. That's something. There are also direct ways in which you can reach out to do something that is service oriented for others that they didn't ask for. For instance, I noticed some people do neighborhood cleanups on their own. The other day, my wife and I were at the beach, and we noticed that there was a mother and daughter, it looked to be, together with, garbage bags and those kind of little, not little, they're long. There are devices where you can pick things up without touching them. And they were just cleaning up the beach. Uh, you know, Nobody asked them, nobody's paying them. But if you go into that realm, this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, try it. See how you feel. Do you feel worse about yourself when you do that, or better? You can gauge for yourself. Yeah, I just did some selfless service. I feel terrible. And it becomes a kind of you can get really attached to that. Like, I want to do more. So the more you do, the more you come into this idea of selfless service as a way of life. And some people just fully dedicate themselves to that. Why not? You give yourself, and then you notice that the universe is very generous. We're being maintained. We don't have to hold on to so much. We can just move. I have several more slides, so I'm going to jump back in really quick. And just keep in mind, if you hear something, as they say at the airport, if you see something, say something. So
I wanted to, is it okay if I share real quick?
Oh, yes, please.
Your thing about getting up and really cherishing the time in the morning. And I've shared this before. My mom is Navajo, and our teachings are we have to get up to greet the sun, and we go out to the east when the sun's coming up, and that's the most powerful time for us to say our prayers and give our offerings is in that dawn, that when the sun is coming up. And when we are out looking at the east, we have to think about ourselves. We have to think about our family. Then we have to think about our community, and then globally. So I'm learning more about that philosophy, our philosophy of living in the Navajo way, and the things that you share here. And I've said this, it's similar. Like what we see, we have to be careful what we look at, what comes out of our mouth, because it has power. So that is coming up for me because you're sharing about the morning and how important it is to get up and greet the sun. And it's very much in line with my mom's teachings.
Yeah, thank you for bringing these universal principles to the fore. The sun is an object of meditation in many of the wisdom literatures, remembering how everything's a transformation of sun energy. Everything we eat comes from the sun. How does it do that? I often watch in my garden how the sun rays, when they're slightly more extended, that is, the days are getting longer by a few minutes, all the plants wake up and they say, hey, we're back. Everything's okay now. Everyone comes alive. And when the sun goes down, everyone just conks out, like it's not even worth it anymore. I mean, why do we sleep anyway? When the sun's not there, our life goes away. What is it anyway? It's the biggest event of the day when the sun comes up, but I often miss it because I'm focused on the future, and I'm not aware really of the wonders of the environment, of the things around me, but especially the sun. Yes, and thank you for pointing out the way these practices and values cross over between various cultures. Okay, I saw there's some more things on the board. I'm going to come back to them because I want to do a couple more slides. And one of my favorite topics coming up, and here it is about attitude. Such an interesting phenomena, attitude. But what I like about it is it can be changed at any time. So cultivating gratitude is a kind of decision. And if we are deliberate about that, it leads us to a kind of logical conclusion, if not tacit, that there's something good about the world. even with its changes and so forth, there's a sense in which, and I believe it was Anna in the beginning pointed out that even from reversals and so-called bad situations, we can learn to be grateful. And this is a quintessential attitude of the sattvic mind, or the mind which is in the highest or aligned with the highest vibration. And part of that is to live to be corrected. Don't think that the world's meant to conform to you, but think I'm being given lessons from the world. And if you adopt these two, which complement one another, then there's no lack of opportunity. That's for sure. Another is to audit your values, people over things. I just contemplating how the more personal something is, even in a practical sense, like if you go into advertising, the more personal something is, the more people value it. And when we prioritize, we think about our priorities, what are our highest values? Then that becomes our governing factor in life, rather than forgetting and then going on with whatever I have to do just to survive. If I live for my higher values, then I'll feel energized. And remember that we're just passing through. That helps to adjust to our values, or it helps to adjust our values, rather, to remember that we're just passing through. As an example, people oftentimes, when they're leaving the world, will give a list of things they wish they had done more. Have you ever noticed this? Of course, I don't know if these lists are contrived or not, but it's definitely a fact that people, when they know they have a finite amount of time, we all do, but when it becomes more defined, they start thinking about what the more important things in their lives were. So remember, if we're just passing through, like, what's really, really important to me in this life? Audit that on a regular basis. That aligns you with a higher vibration in your mind. And be aware of your awareness. Now, this is going into some of the technicalities of being aware of your awareness. You are a unit of awareness. You can be aware of your own awareness. And by doing mantra meditation, which we started off with, what is behind this? According to Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, there are 5 states of mind. They're categories. And the first 3 that are listed here, dull, wandering, and distracted, are mixed with the lower modalities. And therefore, they don't bring happiness, actually. Dullness is included in sleep, although we try to take shelter of sleep and try to get some happiness out of just shutting the mind down. Sleep in Sanskrit is called laya. It means destruction of consciousness. We just let it all go. I'm not advocating that we don't sleep, but I'm just saying it is a state of consciousness that's not in the highest modality. Wandering, that can be described as looking at something or just going from one thing to the next. And distracted means, although I'm trying to focus, I can only focus for a short amount of time, but then I move to something else. So these first 3 at the top, dull, wandering, and distracted, are states of mind in which we don't find happiness. We can't. There is no sense of peace in any of those. However, the highest stages are called one-pointed and restrained. And these are states of mind in which we inherently feel happiness in our mind. And they are developed by the practices that I'm mentioning here, lifestyle changes, and also through the process of mantra meditation, which are cleansing. They cleanse the mind. They help to align it to a higher level. The great teachers of yoga from bygone ages have left behind volumes of literature called yoga psychology. And they also mentioned the 5 kleshas, or sufferings within the mind. I've gone into these in more detail in previous presentations, but I'm just mentioning them in summary now to say that if your mind ever feels disturbed or is suffering, the yoga psychologists have categorized it into one of these 5 states which causes misery within the mind: ignorance, false ego, misidentification with the body, that is, thinking I am a physical body, attachment, unnecessary attachment to temporary things, dvesha, unnecessary aversion to certain things, and abhinivesha, which is the most pervasive of all the sufferings of mind, which is this sense that I want to live forever in this body, even though I can't. So it becomes a futile attempt, and that causes great anxiety. I realize I'm breezing through this, and there's volumes to be said about and more discussion to have on these, but I just thought I'd show you the categories because they're there. And here is a chart in which the energy centers in the bodies in a human body are delineated, and there are a hierarchy of these chakras. So this relates to the way we speak, specifically in this chart. Vak, you'll see at the bottom here, paravak. Vak, the word voice comes from this. It's cognate with Sanskrit, and vak means speech, the words that we utter. Where do they start? They started as a vibration from ourselves. We are spiritual beings, and we vibrate we give off a certain kind of vibration in the form of desire that rises up to the next level, or the next chakra, in which it manifests in our mind as an idea, or in the buddhi, or the intelligence. And then it becomes, it's entertained in the mind, like, how will I actually carry this out? Like, if I think I want to fly, so then I get the conception of building a contraption that I can fly in. And then my mind starts to work out how to build it. And then how do I make it happen? Through the speech, I verbalize my desire. It comes out my voice box. So I'm speaking right now. This is sound manifest from what I have inside me. It starts from the subtle, and it manifests on a gross level in the form of speech, and speech is creative. So just a word about that, and that is that one can judge the consciousness, or one's own consciousness, by how one speaks. So I have a motto that I aspire to live by, which is not a word wasted. Think about how you might navigate your way around the world and be more thoughtful if you didn't waste any words. Like, for instance, sometimes I can be sitting and something comes into my mind that I could say, and then I analyze it and I say, what is the use of saying it? Will it help the other person when I actually verbalize this? Once I verbalize it, will it make my environment better? Is it something I want to recycle back into my own ear and hear again? Is it useful? And is it even true? As there's fragmentary, and nowadays, who knows what's true anymore? People have become accustomed to just saying whatever they want because it's expedient. And so if we take in these sound vibrations, then it's likely that the urge to speak them will come up. And if we just speak willy-nilly, whatever's on our mind, that's what's called, in this chart, there's a kind of a sense things come into our mind all the time, and it's the monkey mind. Like a baby monkey, I see them all the time in India where I live, and when I live in India, and little baby monkeys, I mean monkeys themselves, especially the rhesus monkeys, they're little rascals. Everywhere they go, they're just looking for trouble. They steal things. They steal your glasses, actually, and they'll trade them back for bananas. But the little baby monkeys, they're the most whimsical of all. And the mind is like that too. Do you want to have that kind of chatter come out of your voice box? You're creating your environment, you're creating your own consciousness, and you're affecting others too. So not a word wasted. That's a campaign. I'm going to make a wristband, not a word wasted. And everyone, if I was in charge, everyone would have to follow it for at least one day. So then what would my environment look like internally and externally if I was very careful about that? So I recommend trying it. Try it for an hour or two and just notice before you speak it, before you verbalize it, think about how I'm creating with this. It has repercussions when I say the words. So do I want to say it? And for the sake of finishing the last slides, I'm going back in. Association is powerful. It's called Sangha. You become who you associate with. And a lot of it has to do with what they're saying. If you don't like what people are saying, or if you don't like the channel you're tuned into, change the channel. It's your life. So you get to choose and rearrange that, and it'll make all the difference in the world. Be an instrument for spiritual upliftment. Perfect your diet. What you are, what you eat, not just in mind, but also body and spirit. That's a big topic. But as usual, I've run us out of time, and we're very near the end. So if you want to, are there any other comments or questions, JM, that came in that we can finish on?
Yeah, there are a couple of them. One is from Skonjeti. How do you avoid overthinking and negative thoughts so that you can attain a peaceful internal environment and mind?
Through mantra meditation, and also it helps to hear from wisdom literatures, because actually reading has a way of realigning our intelligence. It fortifies us. So if you start the day with some affirmation, as we recommend in the 21-day fitness challenge, don't just wake up, roll out of bed. When you open your eyes, start with your affirmation. And as soon as you can get your body together, get clean, drink some warm water, and sit down in a quiet place. Don't turn on any electronic devices, and do your mantra first, even if it's for a minute. Do your mantra, get centered. You'll notice that your mind will be more under your control, and it will be more cooperative because you'll have some spiritual strength.
We have Karen who says, how do you protect your mind if you have to associate with low-minded people?
Just if you have to associate, I mean, and we all do. I'm not advocating becoming antisocial or moving into a cave, but be selective about what you let in. Keep your heart open when you know you're in high-minded company with those that you trust and who are aligned with a higher purpose. And when you're around those who aren't, you can be a little more official, but just be aware of the fact that whatever they're saying or doing is affecting. So you can be a little bit more on guard. That's my recommendation.
I do want to take a minute and inform that we do have the spiritual fitness, Discover Spiritual Fitness workshop coming up on March 7th, where we'll talk about how to befriend your mind. So if you have not already registered, please go to vaisheshikadas.com/discover-spiritual-fitness and register. It's a wonderful 2-hour program to discuss mind, its nature, and what you can do to befriend it. So with that, I'll come back to the questions. We have Jean saying that is the key. Do the mantras, meditation in AM before you turn on any devices, read email, etc. Connect with your mind and your body before allowing external things in.
So Man, mantra, man means mind, and tra means to deliver. It will bring your mind above the mire of the chatter, the mire of worry, of thinking into the future unnecessarily, and it'll allow you to be present and actually experience the nectar of who you are. Who you are is amazing, and if you can see it, even for a second, then you'll feel centered and happy. JM, how about if we end with a mantra?
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay. Is that okay, everybody? Do you have 30 more seconds? I know I ran us over time, but I'm going to go back in and share the mantra screen, and I'll teach you one more mantra. You already know this one, perhaps, but let's look at it and try it out. So this mantra, Nitai Gauranga. I've spelled it phonetically here, but this is another mantra you can use after you do Om, and I'll pronounce the mantra. I'll say it 5 times. And if you like, behind muted mics, you can repeat it with me and add it to your morning practice. And if you try it a few days or every day during the week, a few times, maybe next time you can report back. So here's how it goes. Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga. And a last tip about mantra meditation is that I recommend counting how many mantras you do every day. You can write it down and keep a little tabulation so that you stay steady in a certain number of mantras. This will give you what's called numerical strength. It will help you to develop your mantra practice. Try starting with Om. It's a very centering mantra. And then Nitai Gauranga will bring into your consciousness a sense of gratitude and compassion, because they're the avatars of gratitude and compassion. JM?
Yes.
We ran out of time. Thank you, everybody. It was an unmitigated pleasure being with you for all this time. Really, you gave such rapt attention. It was really touching, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and look forward to seeing you next time. Now, in parting, we've been trying this ancient practice. The yogis in the Himalayas who would meditate in caves for months at a time, and then when they'd come out of their meditation, they'd see each other on the path. They would greet each other with this saying that we can try, because we're in little caves here in our Zoom rooms, and you're all yogis. And so it goes like this: Hari, I'll write it in the chat.
Hari.
Hari and Bol. And it means keep the transcendental vibration going. It's just an encouragement they say to each other, like, keep it going. Keep your meditation going. So if you want to end tonight's session, all yogis on here, you can unmute yourself, even come on camera if you want, and say Hari Bol. Everyone say Hari Bol.
Haribol.
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 Thank you very
Haribol.
much, everybody. Haribol.
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 Haribol.